Alright, what's up, perps? Back for another video. This one isn't an episode of Paper Cuts. This is just going over some of the stuff that happened just today, basically in Congress. So, let me kick over here and we will share a screen with some sound. Get some stuff out of the way and get over here to the tube of views. Now, first thing that happened today, and Jared from Guns and Gadgets pretty much already covered some of this. Get to work this morning about 8:30. Get there before my guys. Log on, do my normal thing. So my normal thing is normally open up my email, checking congress.gov. And this morning from congress.gov, we see two new bills that have been submitted. Both of these they say they're introduced yesterday. They didn't pop up on congress.gov, I don't think, until today, unless they popped up late yesterday. So these are two Republican bills to require the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to eliminate its enterprise content management imaging repository system and for other purposes. The other bill, the H.R. 6945, to amend Title 18 United States Code to discontinue the collection of collection by the federal government of firearms transaction records of discontinued firearms businesses, to require the destruction of such already collected records and for other purposes. So these guys are actually catching on to what the ATF is doing with their optical scans and their backdoor registry, and they're trying to knock that down. About the only thing that really popped up today also was this in the Deadly No Knock Warrants Acts. I don't even know where the text of the bill's up yet. And for those of you who don't know, the bill will pop up and I'll click on it. So yeah, they actually do have the text up. So, and I'm not going to run through that one. The other thing was our illustrious leaders had a hearing today, and we're going to listen to some of it, about reimagining public safety. And it's everything you could probably imagine it would be. So let's see.
Have witnessed a spike in certain types of crimes.
Hold on, let me back that up a little bit.
As quickly as we can.
Oh no, because she goes to something else. Come on, get to your statement, you hag. Is it just me,
We'll accommodate
or does
any
it
members
look
who need
like an elephant took a shit on her head?
to participate remotely in order to attend the service. I now recognize myself for an opening statement.
I bet you she recognizes herself.
During today's hearing, the subcommittee will investigate the causes of the rise in the rate of violent crime during the COVID-19 era and the aftermath, and the role of the federal government in developing strategies to ensure and enhance public safety. After years of falling crime rates, Americans have witnessed a spike in certain types of crimes. In the last 2 years, we have seen a spike in homicides and shootings, particularly in historic.
Did she just say homicides? I swear to God, that's what she said, was homicides.
Underfunded areas. The causes of the rise in violent crime are not clear, as homicide rates increase.
I'm pretty sure she said homicide.
At the same rate in cities that adopted criminal justice reform measures as those that did not. And as many cities grapple with the rise in violent crime and rural communities, not all crime is up during the pandemic. Property crime overall fell 8%, led by drops in burglary and larceny. It appears that the spike in violent crime coincides with the societal, cultural, and economic disruptions brought on by the pandemic.
So yeah, they're going to blame this all on COVID, and you'll hear it as, because I'll probably only do her statement, but yeah, you'll hear it. They blame legal gun owners for the rise in gun crime because, if nothing else, our guns get stolen and used in crimes. So it's not the criminal's fault. Yeah, I just said that because she's going to say it. Yeah.
The murder of George Floyd, which toppled already fragile police community relations, and the ensuing social upheaval that followed his death and the deaths of others at the hands of police. Statistics.
Yeah, this hearing was right at, I just had to mention that. This hearing was right at 4 hours long. So for at least almost half my day today, I had this listening to it while I was working. Yeah.
Show that much of the recent crime wave involves firearms, guns, which have been a pervasive problem in America long before the COVID-19 era. In fact, the weapon of choice for violent criminals is the gun. In an average year, guns account for roughly 2/3 of homicides. However, in 2020, 77% of murders involved firearms. Today, more people are carrying guns in America, legally and illegally, than ever. Fueled by politics and anxieties brought on by the pandemic, firearms sales have surged along with police recovery of illegal firearms.
Now notice she's mentioned nothing about cities being burnt to the ground by BLM and Antifa, about any of the leftists who went out like a guy in Washington and just shot another guy because he was a Trump supporter. No, didn't mention any of that, and she won't.
Firearms are stolen from legal gun owners who leave them in places unstored. Americans purchased approximately 19 million.
Now, I'm going to let it play a little bit more. But yeah, this is a theme running through this entire hearing. Pretty much every bill that I've covered and every bill that I'm going to cover, they are alluding to in this hearing, such as safe storage laws. They get into more of the bans, high capacity bans, assault weapons. Yeah, everything is our fault.
Firearms last year, down 12.5% from 2020, according to several industry estimates, but 2021 was still the industry's second busiest year on record. More guns lead to more shootings. With so many guns around, they're more likely to be used in violent acts. Their presence makes it more likely that thieves can steal them to commit other crimes, and that arguments or fights will escalate out of control, as has been happening across the nation, and families have been shooting each other, friends have been shooting each other, or lead to unexpected consequences like the senseless death of 9-year-old Arlene Alvarez last month in Houston by a robbery victim who thought he was shooting in the vehicle at the vehicle of the person who robbed him. He should not have done that. And he killed a precious 9-year-old. He was not the police.
I got to love this indignation that she puts on right here. Because she doesn't give a shit about that little girl.
Didn't know that the person who had robbed him had gotten in, and it was for a mere $20. He should be held accountable. Because of the prevalence of guns on our streets, we cannot discuss the rise in violence without mentioning common sense strategies to effectively reduce gun violence across the country, such as closing background check loopholes, doing away with permitless carry, addressing unregulated do-it-yourself.
Yeah, that's another, and she's fixing to hit ghost guns right here, but that's another thing they go into this hearing real deep is the permitless carry in Texas and in states like mine, like Alabama, who are trying to pass it right now. Because it's our fault that criminals go out and do criminal shit.
Ghost guns and strengthening gun laws that allow guns to be trafficked from state to state. And of course, community intervention programs should be uplifted as.
Just because she mentioned ghost guns. Hold on. I'm going to hold my ghost gun for the remainder of her statement.
They provide support to those who are at the highest risk of being victims or perpetrators of both of violence, and it helps both police and
Yes, it's
those
clear.
communities as they try to reduce crime. Just as many cities experienced a rise in violent crime, that included murders of police officers, many communities also saw an increase in use of force by law enforcement officers. Police shot and killed 1,055 people in 2021, the highest total number reported since tracking began in 2015. Incidents of excessive force and racial and religious profiling.
And what is 2015? I didn't know we had made it to that year yet, but will she mention the reason some of these shootings happen? Not all of them, because police do some bad shoots. I've seen plenty of body cam video. Where police blasted people they never should have blasted. But will she mention some of the reasons some of these folks got killed by police? No. No.
Committed by police officers disproportionately among the most marginalized Black and brown communities reduce public confidence and trust in law enforcement, which negatively impacts police legitimacy and increases some people's willingness to arm themselves and take matters into their own hands. I have seen where police and community have worked together, turn the corner on this. The admiration is strong and the relationship is strong, and they work together to fight crime. That is what we want to see in our nation. On the other hand, as I've indicated, strong police-community relationships forced by community programs that build partnerships between the community and law enforcement and help reduce crime, like the Hartford Police Athletic and Activities League that provides youth with alternatives to violence, gang membership, truancy, and substance abuse.
Because that's what's going to stop crime, kids. We tried this back in the 90s. They called it midnight basketball.
And like my own city, Chief Finner, the Houston Police Department, where police officers are out during Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving, working with families who are in need. That is how we try to work together. Even as we try to recover from the past 2 years, the lasting impacts of COVID-19 on public health and safety are evident and cannot be solved by law enforcement and the criminal justice system alone. Decades of underinvestment in communities that are primarily experiencing increased violence have created concentrated areas of disadvantage, poverty, and instability, which were only compounded by the uncertainty of the COVID-19 pandemic, the loss of vital social services, such as gun violence intervention programs and easy availability of firearms. Reimagining and ensuring public health and safety require effective policing practices, investment in community resources and collaboration, and trust between law enforcement and the communities they police through policies that support transparency and accountability. Local leaders throughout the country are working to develop and implement strong public safety initiatives.
Has she mentioned anything about actually stopping violent criminals from committing violent acts yet? Because this is at least the third time I've listened to her statement and I haven't found that yet. I'm still looking for it though. It's like, where's Waldo? Only in this case there is no Waldo or common sense.
That balance the need for law enforcement with the need for community investment and collaboration. Congress can support their efforts and incentivize states and localities in developing traditional and additional evidence-based tools that focus on prevention and intervention. For instance, last year, Representative Lizzie Fletcher and myself were able to secure $975,000 in burn justice assistance grant funding for the Houston Police Department to employ 9 crime victim advocates that provide trauma-informed support for victims of violent crimes. We'd like to see it end, but we cannot forget those victims who are in need on these issues. The United States has historically funneled billions into punitive criminal justice policies, flooding local law enforcement with military-grade weapons and incentivizing mass incarceration instead of looking for solutions that will eliminate.
Yeah, I need to do this whole hearing as a drinking game one night. Maybe you guys that actually, if you watch this video, will submit the terms to do for drinking. I'm thinking like military-grade weapons would be one. If we just said guns or firearms, we'd all be drunk in like 30 minutes, but we might do that too. Send me some suggestions.
The conditions in which crime breeds. At this juncture, we must not return to antiquated thinking of tough on crime laws that led to over-policing, mass incarceration, and the devastation of impacted
Maybe those ought to be some of them. Mass incarceration and over-policing.
communities. Expanding our idea of what constitutes public safety is key to keeping our communities safe through community-driven solutions carefully tailored to meet each community's specific needs. I look forward to hearing from the witnesses and hope we have a constructive conversation that helps us find solutions to the current wave of violence which must end. Without objection, I submit into the record the following documents: a fact sheet entitled Policing, Violence, and Criminal Justice Reform, and a report entitled Descriptive Analysis of Homicide Trends in 61 Major U.S. cities, both from the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, and the Reduction of Crime Program by the City of Houston, authored by the Mayor Turner of the City of Houston. Without objection.
Just because I'm a curious person, how is that crime rate in Houston going these days? Be interesting to know.
I now recognize the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs, for his opening statement.
I know this is the point where I decide whether I want to go through Biggs' statement or not, because Biggs actually does. Screw it. We'll run through it.
I thank the chair. Recently, our colleague and friend Jim Hagedorn, Republican from Minnesota, passed away. His memorial services this morning. I appreciate that we had a moment of silence on his behalf, and I appreciate the chair for that. But I believe this hearing would have been better served if we would have continued this, especially since most of our witnesses will be appearing via Zoom, just out of respect for the family, friends of Congressman Hagedorn. But I am appreciative of this hearing, the topic of this hearing, and I am sincere when I say that about 8 months ago, I and my Republican colleagues on this subcommittee wrote you a letter requesting a hearing on the dangerous calls by some on the left to defund the police and other progressive policies that correlate to rising crime. This is a very serious issue that deserves this subcommittee's full attention. Last month, I, along with my Republican colleagues...
Now, this is one thing that annoys me with these Republican milquetoast people. She really did a whole lot to pound on firearms and firearms owners and stuff during her statement. Why even touch on the whole defund the police thing right away? Just argue what she used, which was a lot about firearms and firearms owners, and it politely explained to that moron that criminals are criminals by definition, and they don't give a damn about any of your firearms laws, and it is not a gun owner's fault when someone steals their property and commits a crime with said property. No different than if someone steals my truck in a parking lot and uses it to do a drive-by, a bank robbery, or just run somebody over. Still not my fault. I didn't do it. If I took this and left it sitting on a park bench while I walked 10 feet away to go do something and someone stole this, still not my fault. I wasn't the thief. I'm not responsible for that other person's actions.
Sent the chair a letter requesting that the subcommittee hold a hearing to investigate the recent reports that ICE released an illegal alien with ties to terrorism from custody because he might catch COVID-19. That's an outrageous policy decision. This subcommittee should immediately hold a hearing on the matter, and I again renew my call for that hearing, and I look forward to working with the chair to schedule that hearing. Turning our attention to this hearing today, we see crime rates, particularly violent crime rates, going up all around the country. I fear that this hearing is nothing more than an election year attempt by my colleagues to deflect attention away from those in their party who have vocally championed defund police movement, as well as other progressive policies, which will be discussed today. Let's hope this hearing can shed light on why defunding the police is a dangerous idea with deadly results. As some on the left have called for defunding the police, and some jurisdictions actually did defund their police departments, violent crime has surged to levels not seen in years. During the last 2 years, the United States has seen a spike in violent crime. In 2020, the U.S. tallied more than 21,000 murders, the highest totals since 1995 and 4,900 more than in 2019. The number of murders in the U.S. jumped by nearly 30%. It was the largest single-year increase ever recorded in the country, and some have blamed exclusively the COVID lockdowns. While this was going on, jurisdictions across America were also actually defunding their police departments with disastrous results. In New York City, for instance, NYPD's data shows their overall crime rate rose 11.2% in October 2021 compared to October 2020. That jump in crime continued after New York City defunded its police department by $1 billion. In LA County, homicides increased 23% from 555 in 2020 to 683 in 2020.
Yeah, I'm to the point, especially after police were enforcing things like masks and stuff of that nature, or enforcing a lot of gun control things. I'm pretty cool with defunding said police when they enforce unconstitutional acts. However, when you do defund righteous, I should say, police actions in violent areas, guess what you are going to get? And these people act like this is rocket science to figure out. Like we're trying to do quantum theory here. Violent people commit violent acts. When violent people are out on the street, they commit violent acts against other people out on the street. If you keep said violent people in prison, they won't be out on the street to commit said violent acts. Problem solved. There's your answer. Where's my think tank money? Think take? Fuck, I don't know.
21. The increased homicide rate occurred after Los Angeles defunded its police department by $150 million. Intentional killings of law enforcement officers reached a 20-year high in 2021. It would have been an all-time high since the FBI began tracking the data in 1995, but for the attacks on September 11th. In total, 73 officers were feloniously killed last year. 346 officers were shot last year. More worrisome is the fact that many of these shootings occurred ambush style, meaning that the officers were shot without warning or an opportunity.
Now, what's not mentioned in his statement is how many officers actually survived violent attacks through other weapons other than firearms, and how many officers got shot at but didn't get hit and then had to return fire. Those categories account for a very large number of the people that Sheila Jackson Lee was talking about were just getting killed by police. Like, I don't know, they're running around doing this shit because it's like deer season or something. I don't know.
Opportunity to defend themselves. These types of attacks were up 115% in the last year. Philadelphia saw a nearly 13% increase in homicides from 2020 to 2021. In 2020, Philadelphia suffered 499 homicides, while 563 were reported in 2021. Philadelphia decided to cut its police budget by $33 million in 2020. Portland, Oregon also suffered a drastic increase in homicides from 2020 to 2021. In 2020, Portland suffered 53 homicides and endured 87 in 2021. It also reported 409 aggravated assaults in 2021, an increase over the 2,726 in 2020. Portland also decided to fund its police department in 2020 by $16 million. No one should be surprised that violent crime explodes when jurisdictions significantly reduce the funding of police or implement progressive policies that favor defendants over victims and the community. Despite these troubling trends, our colleagues still advocate for defunding the police. Madam Chair, I have a video I'd like to finish my statement with.
We're going to kick it through the end of his statement just to watch his video because it is what it is. But notice how none of these people just get up and speak like you do or like I do, stringing a coherent thought together, making valid arguments. They're just sitting there reading. And it's because their staffers are the ones writing all this shit for them. And that's the way this goes. This is all about getting airtime and making points, political points for these people. Yeah. Oh yeah, and just to hit it real quick, yeah, that was another big theme in this hearing. Since Republicans didn't vote for this massive coronavirus stimulus spending, fuck, we'll just print more money bill. That Republicans were the actually the ones that wanted to defund police.
Oh, God.
Prominent progressives on Capitol Hill are echoing the chants heard from protesters on streets in major cities around the country. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, whose district includes Minneapolis, has called the police there rotten to the root, saying the department shouldn't just be defunded, it should be dismantled.
We mean ending this department as it currently exists.
I am for defunding the police.
Some city officials calling for police departments across the U.S. to be defunded.
Proceeded to leave tweeting, "No more policing, incarceration, and militarization. It can't be reformed."
What we've seen in Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti saying, take some of the money from policing, about $150 million, invest it in health initiatives, training initiatives for youth.
I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done.
Painted in huge block letters on city streets from Washington to Wisconsin. Some who support the idea want to strip all police funding and dissolve entire departments.
There's some issues that we ask police to do, like mental health issues or policing in schools and all the rest.
Now, the bad thing is, now, all of this was reported on CNN, MSNBC, the big news networks. People watched this. A lot of people just were on the bandwagon for it. And now when Democrats say they weren't for defunding the police, these people still buy that narrative that, no, the Democrats didn't want to defund police. The amount of absolute lazy, ignorant stupidity that is involved in believing these people is baffling to me.
That perhaps we can shuffle some of that money around.
We don't want no more police, but we need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
Yes, I support the defund movement.
Defunding police means defunding police. If these reports are accurate, then these proposed cuts to the NYPD budget are a disingenuous illusion. This is not a victory. The freshman Democrat adding, the fight to defund policing will continue.
Today in New York, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced a plan to defund the NYPD. The move joins with Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, who recently agreed to slash up to
No, that's not it.
Oh, this part's funny. They basically shut him down. Even though Sheila Jackson Lee went over her time, they shut him down because his video was going like 18 seconds over time. I'm going to leave it right here. This whole thing's a complete shit show. It might become a Share the Pain stream. Share the Pain, aka drinking game. If not, there's another Supreme Court arguments I want to do. So that'll be another Sunday night Share the Pain stream. So any of you guys that have showed up to Share the Pain streams, love you, man. It's freaking awesome when you guys show up and are commenting on stuff. You make me think even more about what's going on, and I really appreciate it. You guys are outstanding. So I'm going to leave that with you perps for right now, and I'm going to end it, and I will catch you on the next one. Y'all be cool.